You know, it turns out that when you ask what makes something intelligible, you've already proven that Yahweh exists. At least, that's what this fella thinks. And he's checked 300 gods to make sure, all by himself. So we better take a look at why, apparently, the very act of thinking this video is nonsense proves that it isn't. Hello, I'm the Skeptic, the British floating circle that watches people make extraordinary claims, and then I explain why I don't accept what they're saying. So, Adrian King, official, has proven God exists, with logic and acronyms and something called rocks. Despite looking younger than some underwear I have, he's done all the work, checked every single claim, and concluded that Yahweh wins, and I'm not at all convinced. However, before finding out why it's Yahweh or the Ha-way, if this isn't your first Skeptic video, hit the like, the subscribe and the bell, and maybe the algorithm will get on the right road. And a super thanks to those that hit super thanks in some recent videos. Mikael Lundgren, Megatron Jenkins, and this absolute belter from the Clyde. And a big thank you to channel members who get to use Lisa the Rainbow Giraffe and more hen emojis. Lisa the Rainbow Giraffe bestows leaves upon you all. More hen. This could either be a very long video with thousands of gods to go through, or a very short one.
Okay, welcome back to my YouTube channel. I'm going to be giving you the transcendental argument for God's existence, which is identified in my presentation as the intelligibility argument. The intelligibility argument is going to prove the existence of the triune God because it has three premises followed by a conclusion. It's a valid argument, it's a sound argument, it's a cogent argument.
Cogent, you say? Let's see if I'm, cogented, I guess.
And I'm going to be telling you why as we go through the premises and the defense of the premises. So, it begins as follows. If intelligibility exists, then intelligibility requires a sufficient ultimate ground. P2. Intelligibility exists. P3. Only the triune God, Yahweh, satisfies the necessary conditions for the sufficient ultimate ground of intelligibility. Conclusion. Therefore, the triune God, Yahweh, exists.
Things need explaining. Things exist. Only Yahweh explains the things because Yahweh is the God I believe in. Therefore, Yahweh. Yeah. Couldn't things just exist because, or maybe because Lisa the Rainbow Giraffe, leave be upon her, pooped everything into existence?
So the inference rules that are used in the transcendental argument that I'm using right now are modus ponens, hypothetical syllogism, reductio ad absurdum, and from that, the reductio ad absurdum, we have the elimination of alternatives, and we also have what is called transcendental retorsion, which is not an inference rule, but a principle where if you deny the ultimate grounding for intelligibility without a rational basis, then you commit the fallacy of retorsion.
Do you think he knows what he's saying, or is he relying completely on ChatGPT here? His eyes are darting.
Okay, so premise one, defense. If intelligibility exists, then intelligibility requires a sufficient ultimate ground. This premise is grounded in, here we go, the PSR. The principle of sufficient reason. This premise is grounded in the principle of sufficient reason. The principle of sufficient reason says that things do not simply float without explanation. Reality, facts, logic, order, causality, moral obligation, rational inference, and intelligibility must have an adequate reason or ground.
Hello, British floating circle. I float because I am. You don't get to say I don't understand why things float, therefore the God I believe in is the explanation. That's not how things work.
This is something that is a reality thing. To deny that things have reasons for their existence is to literally use the thing that you're denying. Because there is a reason for you saying that things exist for no reason. And hence, it is a self-referential inconsistency, the fallacy of retortion, and a performative contradiction.
Nobody said things exist for no reason, though. Atheists don't say things just happen for absolutely no reason. We say we don't know the ultimate reason yet. I don't know is far more honest than my Sky Daddy did it.
To say logic just exists, reason just works, reality just happens to be intelligible. To say logic just exists, reason just works, reality just happens to be intelligible is not an explanation. It is an arbitrary stopping point. A brute fact destroys rational inquiry.
Why is logic just exists wrong, but you can say God just exists and that's fine? Do I have to order a double standards, or is it buy one get one free?
Science assumes causality, uniformity, order, and intelligible structure. Logic assumes identity, non-contradiction, valid inference, and stable meaning. Morality assumes real obligation, distinction between good and evil, and accountability. Logic assumes meaning, rather language assumes meaning, reference, identity, and shared rational structure. If intelligibility had no sufficient ground, then all of these would collapse into unexplained accident.
They might, or they emerge through natural processes we don't fully understand yet. One of those is honest, the other is therefore Yahweh.
Premise 2. Intelligibility exists. This premise is grounded in actual experience. We do not merely theorize about intelligibility. We use it constantly. Every time someone argues, questions, reasons, doubts, denies, affirms, investigates, speaks, understands, they presuppose intelligibility. They affirm intelligibility in their actions. Even the atheist who says, the positive atheist rather, who says, God does not exist, must rely on logic, meaning, identity, language, inference.
Relying on logic? Oh no, how terrible. I hate relying on things being logical. What an awful circle I am.
You cannot deny logic without using logic. You cannot deny meaning without using meaning. You cannot deny truth without making a truth claim. You cannot deny identity without identifying what you are denying. You cannot deny rationality without presenting reasons. So intelligibility is not optional. It is the precondition of all debate, all science, all thought, all communication, and all objection. Therefore, intelligibility exists.
All of those things are demonstrable. God's aren't.
Now, premise 3. Only the triune God Yahweh satisfies the necessary conditions for the sufficient ultimate ground of intelligibility. Now, this is where the rubber meets the road, guys. This is where my argument stands or falls. Because I have to prove that this is not just an assertion. I have to actually show you. I have to actually prove to you. I have to actually give you evidence that supports this claim, that supports this premise.
Yes, you do. Give me evidence and shut me up.
The ROCS framework, so that's an acronym, ROCS, Rational Ontological Correspondence System, and comparative transcendental analysis. The ultimate ground of intelligibility must be necessary, self-existent, eternal, immutable, non-contingent, rational, personal, omniscient, sovereign, morally perfect, transcendent, immanent, able to ground unity and diversity, able to ground universals and particulars, able to ground logic and morality, able to ground mind-world correspondence. Only Yahweh satisfies this set.
That's absolutely not evidence. That's you describing something in a terribly put-together chat GPT list and then saying, my God does that because I said so, without even demonstrating the God.
Now, this is why matter cannot ground intelligibility. Matter is contingent, changing, divisible, finite, non-rational in itself. But logic is immaterial, universal, invariant, necessary, normative. Changing physical particles cannot ground universal laws of logic. Matter may be governed according to rational structure, but it cannot be the ultimate source of rational structure. So materialism fails.
The alternative isn't automatically Yahweh. It could be something we don't have a name for yet. It could be Lisa the Rainbow Giraffe Leaf be upon her, whose universal poop caused everything. You don't know.
Why chance cannot ground intelligibility. Chance is not a causal power. Chance does not actualize, sustain, govern, or explain. Chance presupposes probability, order, possibility, and a structured field of events. So, Chance cannot be the ultimate ground of intelligibility because chance itself needs intelligible conditions in order to be meaningful. Chance fails.
You're giving chance way more credit than it deserves. Things happen. You're adding chance to then say how it doesn't work.
Brute facts cannot ground intelligibility. Brute facts say, this just is. But that destroys explanation. If intelligibility is brute, then logic, morality, causality, induction, and reason are arbitrary. But arbitrary foundations cannot ground rational necessity. Therefore, brute facts fail. Why human reason cannot ground intelligibility? Human reason is finite, dependent, fallible, changeable, historically located, and derivative. Human reason uses logic. It does not create the laws of logic.
Human reason explains what we understand about logic. Yahweh still hasn't been demonstrated, matey.
Why abstract concepts cannot ground intelligibility? Some may appeal to abstract objects, logic, numbers, universals, propositions, but abstract objects do not cause, sustain, govern, command, reveal, or account for why minds correspond to reality. To actually appeal to abstract objects is called the stipulation of abstraction, which is called the reification fallacy. Abstractions do not do anything. They're not natured entities. Abstract laws may describe necessary relations, but they do not explain why they are real and why reality is structured according to them or why rational minds can know them. Therefore, abstract objects are insufficient.
Everything fails except Yahweh, huh? Because that's the God you believe in. You have to presuppose it's your God to make it fit.
A bare monadic deity may claim unity, but it struggles to ground diversity, relation, love, communication, and personal plurality as eternal realities. If ultimate reality is pure solitary unity, then plurality becomes secondary, derivative, or less ultimate. But reality contains both unity and diversity. The one and the many problem requires an ultimate where unity and diversity are equally ultimate. The Trinity uniquely supplies this.
The Trinity cannot exist because an all-powerful God cannot be those three things. It cancels itself out. A God cannot die and be immortal. It's a made-up contradiction that makes zero sense, and you saying it's the cause is very stupid.
There is something that I have done that most people haven't done, and I will not say that no one has ever done it. No one that I know of has ever done it. And I have personally done the transcendental comparative analysis for all of the major gods of Africa, the ancient Near East, Asia, Europe, Americas, and Oceania. All six, I have done the transcendental analysis for all of the gods that are major gods in these regions. And I've come up with a little over 300 gods. So the billions and millions of gods in existence is actually a myth if you use a specific criteria.
He's checked 300 gods and Yahweh won. I've checked one goddess. Lisa the Rainbow Giraffe Leaf be upon her. She also wins by my criteria. Funny how that works, right? So when it comes to your results, Adrian...
No one cares!
I've done the work. So when I say Yahweh is the only one whose attribute set is reflected in reality perfectly, that's a fact. Now, to quickly close this off. Conclusion. Therefore, the triune God Yahweh exists. The conclusion follows necessarily. If intelligibility requires sufficient ultimate ground, intelligibility exists, and only Yahweh satisfies that ground, then necessarily the triune God Yahweh exists. This conclusion is not merely probable. It is transcendentally necessary.
It's absolutely not a fact. It's your belief and your conclusion. You can't conclude it was something that you haven't proven to exist outside of you just saying it exists.
And sometimes this stupid question comes out. Why? Could it be something else? Asking, could it be something else, is not a refutation. The atheist, whether they are passive or active, whether they are positive or negative, they will say, maybe it could be something else. But that's not an argument. A question is not a negation. A possibility is not an actuality. A hypothetical is not a defeater.
Why could it be something else is a stupid question, apparently. The actual answer to why Yahweh specifically is because he checked 300 gods and Yahweh was the winner, because he said so.
It's like me saying leprechauns exist. Prove me wrong. I gave no reasons. I gave no justification. I gave no premises. I gave no form of rational reason for you to believe it. And then after making the claim, I said, defend the opposite or prove me wrong. That's not what I just did. I gave my claims and I gave my claim and I gave my reasons for my claim. If you can't negate my claim, then my argument stands.
That's exactly what you did, though. You just said the name of the God you believe in several times. Your argument does not stand. You just said words and hoped that no one would say it was stupid. Unfortunately, I came along.
I am not going to be interacting with any response that does not attempt to negate or refute my premises, because you guys saying you're unconvinced, you guys asking me questions that have already been answered in the arguments, I'm just going to ignore them because they're irrelevant. I don't care if you're unconvinced. I don't care about your questions of, but it could be this, but it could be that. That's a fallacy. And I don't care about your criteria of belief that you violate yourself. I don't care.
You can't negate something that hasn't been demonstrated. Demonstrate the thing first, then let's have a chat. You tossed a load of word salad and made a God Caesar. I guess checking 300 gods but already having your God as the number one because that's what you were taught is the only way to go. But this was dumber than dumb. I can't refute something when you presuppose so much. Did he prove Yahweh exists? Let me know in the section below. I'm going to skeptic this as the longest way anyone has ever said because God, and still not actually shown us a God. A big thank you to this month's top level ticks on Patreon: Elizabeth, Jakari, William, Rick, George, Mark, Tamo and Mikael Lundgren, as well as all the $3 base ticks and channel members. You can become a supporter on Patreon too at patreon.com/theskeptic. The link is in the description along with links to all my other socials, or become a member by hitting the join button below this video. Don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't already. From me, the Skeptic, stay safe, keep thinking logically and ask questions. Skepticism is the first step towards truth. See you next Saturday.